Hey friend, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here listening to another episode of the Vibrant Artist Podcast. Here we talk all about living a vibrant life as a creative entrepreneur, which is a fancy way of saying this podcast is for folks who want to live a happy, fulfilling, and creative life, to be present in every moment, and to thrive in both their work and personal relationships. If you're the kind of person who doesn't enjoy feeling like you're always scattered behind hustling or treading water, you're in the right space. Here we focus on the full circle as a creative entrepreneur, your art, business, kids, partner, friends, and self, because they're all connected and add to your happy, vibrant life. I'm Jessica, your host, a knitting pattern designer, alignment coach, mama, and your new biz bestie. Hello, hello, hello. I am so excited that you are joining me here for another episode. This is honestly an impromptu episode. I did not prepare myself. My clothes, I'm wearing my t-shirt, it says adventure, all of the things for this episode because it wasn't a planned episode at all. But lately I've had a couple of people in my business spheres. These aren't specifically my clients. Well, I guess one person is like another business owner that I've done a business experience with. So I am doing some coaching with her. But anyway, these are other business owners who I've been helping understand how to repurpose their content. And I'm like, this is something I should share with my people too, because I think you hear about the idea of repurposing, but actually understanding how to do it can be a little more difficult. So I want to give you overall picture of what repurposing content looks like, how it works, and then dig into some examples of how do we actually do this? What does this look like? How do we take our core piece of content? What is our core piece of content? We'll talk about that in the overview, and repurpose it, turn it into other pieces of content for other platforms so that we're not having to make a million brand new pieces of content every single week for your content strategy, right? Okay, real quick, I feel like since this is on the podcast, I was like, okay, I'll write something up for my email list. And then I was like, no, it would be so much easier just to talk through this, especially with the examples and stuff. I do so much better just talking through it. I'll just record a video and send them the video. And then I'm like, if I'm recording the video anyway, especially if I'm putting it on YouTube, I might as well just record the podcast. So here we are, just recording the podcast. So I feel like I should go ahead and talk about the elephant in the room. That is, I was doing all this rebranding, right? And going to come back so energetic for the podcast. That's still happening. It's just taking a long time, and that's okay because I want it done really well. I have a bajillion different ideas for podcasting. Really, the main thing is limited time. Right now, Minnie's down for a nap, but I really have such limited time for doing the branding work, still maintaining all of the things that I'm doing, the 3 free challenges that I'm doing every single quarter, and my regular email content, and then like I was in a summit and all sorts of things. So basically what I'm saying, and I had a new pattern release last month. So it's not just the rebranding that's happening. And I'm not just rebranding the podcast, I'm rebranding, I'm doing the whole full circle entrepreneurship, which is the new and improved version of Pattern Design Circle, the larger brand, more encompassing brand. Plus, I am doing some rebranding and making some big decisions about Snickerdoodle Knits, which is my knitting patterns. And then I'm also creating the Heartful Canvas brand. Anyway, so there's a lot of things going, a lot of circles running. So I guess I'm not going to commit. I'm not going to commit, period, to a certain date coming back. There are so many dates that have already passed that I wanted to be back to podcasting. There's like a couple weeks ago when the Aligned Habits Challenge started, which, by the way, it's still running. If you listen to this within the next week and a half, it's a 3-week-long challenge for establishing habits that really feel good, that you actually follow through with, that, they can be habits that take 20 seconds. They could be habits that you do while you're doing something else. They could be habits that, take up to an hour a day to get you closer to the person you want to be, the life that you want to live. So it just feels really good. So feel free to join. I'll go ahead and put the link in here as well. But anyway, when the first week that I was creating content for that, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm like so excited. I want to like share this on the podcast too. And I was like just getting ready to record a podcast episode, and then Minnie woke up from his nap. So that's what's going on here. Anyway, so we are talking about repurposing your content. If you're like, what in the world are you talking about, Jessica? I have no idea what you're referring to. Repurposing your content is talking about having your content on, let's say that you want to share your content on Instagram, on Pinterest, on a blog, and in your email list, to your email list via email. So you have 4 different platforms that you're wanting to share your content on. And rather than starting from scratch for each single one, you have one main content platform, your main, like the place that you originally create the content for. And then from there, you repurpose that content so that you share the concepts from it, you share bite-sized pieces from it to the other platforms. So typically you start with the long form piece. So in this instance, that would be your blog. You would create the blog first because that's the big chunk of information. And then it's really easy to take those bite-sized pieces from there to share them to Instagram, to Pinterest, to email. Words. So that's the general overview of how that works. If you have a podcast, so like for me, ideally my content repurposing plan is I record the podcast and then I turn that into a blog. So that can be, just taking the transcript and having that on the blog, but it can also be creating a blog post from it, which is ultimately my goal. I've done it a few times, but the time it takes, because I don't love creating outlines for my podcast, and I especially don't like outlining all of it, because I feel like so much of my greatest work comes when it's from flow. It's just coming out as I'm speaking. So then the problem is, especially when I have hour-long podcast episodes, which, by the way, is something that needs to change in order for me to actually make podcasting a pillar again inside my business. But I'm going to have to make them shorter somehow. Just going to have to get used to that for myself. Anyway, so what would have to happen then would that be that I would have to sit down after the podcast episode and remember everything that I talked about, right? Or else have my loose outline and create a blog post from that. But then it is this like kind of creating the same thing a second time. And I haven't ever loved that. But now that we have all these amazing AI tools, I know that it'll be so much easier. And so I'm really, really excited about that moving forward. Anyway, so as theoretically, if I were following my content repurposing plan, which honestly I haven't in a hot minute, for a variety of reasons we won't get into. Anyway, I would record the blog, I record the podcast, I have it like transcribed into, I'll just have it transcribed and then have it turned into a blog post using my wording, and then I go ahead and edit it and tweak it how I want using SEO, optimizing it for SEO. And then I would create my pins that would lead to either the podcast episode or the blog post or a mix of both, to test and see, like, are people more likely to listen to the podcast episode, or are they more likely to go to the blog? My guess would be that the blog would be more beneficial, but this is not something I've tested yet. And then I would take pieces and use that for Instagram. So what I've done most recently has been the clips that I use Opus Clip Pro, so I can put a link in for that too. I'm just going to make a note to myself for links, what I'm going to put here in the description. So Opus Clip Pro is the one that I use, and it takes your long form video and it clips it up into a bunch of short clips. You can tell it what exactly you're looking for, and then you can schedule it right to YouTube Shorts, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram for Reels, all of the different things. And so that's a super easy way to repurpose it and just pull clips and tell people to go check out the podcast. Historically, I have also done a lot more Instagram posts where I create the graphics and pull different things like, here's 3 tips, or that kind of thing. So that, and then the email that I would create, or that I do create, is giving like a general, sharing a little story, connecting the topic to my ideal customer, telling them why it's important, and then saying, hey, check out more on the podcast. And in the future, I want to also be able to say, or on the blog, because sometimes blogs are easier and sometimes podcasts are easier and sometimes it's a personality thing. But like in the past, I would have preferred podcasts. In my current life, blog posts and skimming a blog post is so much easier. So we go through different seasons and phases, right? So as I was saying that, I was realizing I should explain to you, if you're not familiar with repurposing content, why this is such a valuable technique. This is valuable because it saves you so much time and energy and overwhelm, and it makes the content creation process so much faster when you know that, okay, I really just have this one main piece of content, and then I'm just chunking it up into smaller pieces. I don't have to come up with new ideas. Those ideas were already in my main piece of content. And so it's not a matter of creating 5 new Instagram posts every single week in addition to creating a blog and an email and all these things, but they're all tied into the same thing, talking about the same topic, and not having to create something new. So that is more efficient time-wise. But it also, I mentioned, the overwhelm. When we feel like we have to come up with a whole new idea for every single thing, that is where it feels really overwhelming. It feels like just this big, huge thing. So let's say you have one main piece of content every single week. So when I'm podcasting every single week, there's one main piece of content every single week. You only have to come up with 4 ideas, 4 pieces of content that you're sharing that week, and then you pull the other pieces out from that. Okay. Now, historically, the reason I have struggled with this is because I want to share 358 million things. I have 28 different projects going on, and I want to talk about this and that, and 300, I said 358, all these different things, right? I'll admit, that's where I've had problems before, and I know that creates more work for myself, but it also creates more overwhelm for my customer. They have more things to go check out. It can create more chaos. It's not keeping them focused and like giving them a really clear direction on what to do, how to take action. So, all right, let's hop into examples. So, as an example, let's say that you created a blog or a podcast. Honestly, I feel like blog is a simpler place to start because you don't have to do you have everything written out already. That's the example that I just cut apart sounds like a negative thing, but the person that I was working with, that I'm helping coach her, she has this blog post that she's created, and then I pulled straight from the blog post, because that has her wording in it, to create 10 carousel examples for Instagram. So personally, I feel like it's a little bit easier to start with the blog because you already have the words right there. You've already formatted it and everything into usable content for your audience. However, if you have a really good transcript, that works well too. If you have an outline for your podcast, that makes it easy too. Obviously, if you're going from the podcast instead, there's just this extra step of using the transcript and then making it into a format that's easy for you to cut it apart. Okay. Okay, so let's say you have a blog post and it is all about how to find the perfect handmade gift for your bestie. So your you create your art, and this ultimately ties into the art that you create, the handmade thing that you create. But you know that this is a struggle of your ideal customer. When it comes to gift time, they want to create, or they want to gift something that's really intentional, that fits their bestie perfectly, and they want it to be really meaningful and special, right? And so here you're creating this guide of how to do this. And then ideally, this leads into a freebie somehow, some sort of lead magnet, or a small ticket offer that you have, or maybe it's even like you make custom handmade gifts, and it is essentially showing them then how they can pick out the perfect one for their bestie from your lineup, that kind of thing. So don't just like create something random that doesn't have anything to do with your business and your ideal customer, but you want it to be filling a need on their journey, on the customer journey, and also tying into your business and your products and the way that you can serve them. Okay. So we are creating this blog post called How to Find the Perfect Handmade Gift for Your Bestie. And let's say you have broken this blog post into 5 different pieces, 5 different questions for them to ask themselves. And I'm not going to dive into every single little piece of this. But for each question, then you would go even deeper. So for example, apparently I did not finish writing my thought for the 5th one, but for the first question, you're going to say, what do they love? Think about all of their passions. This is you speaking to the person reading your blog post who wants to buy a gift for their bestie, right? So you're telling this person, think about your bestie. Think about all of these things that they love. What are their passions? What are their maybe like even like their quirks and things? Are they obsessed with elephants and the purple color, lime green? Are they, what's their favorite flower? Do they love gardening? Do they love hiking? Like, what are all their interests and passions they're really excited about? Maybe it's cars or something like that. So tell them to think about all these different things that they love. And then question number 2, you're like, think about what they currently have in their home, in their office, in their spaces, maybe in their car. And then what could complement that? So what do they already have? What do you not need to create, like give them the same thing of again? But what's something that you could gift them that would fit their space, that would complement what they already have, that would feel useful to them? And then number 3, tell them, like, think about their style. What's their style? What kind of vibe do they have? Are they somebody who really likes eclectic kind of things? Are they somebody who's likes vintage? Are they somebody who likes modern or classical, or, all these different things? Tell them to think about their style. And then the 4th question, what do they most value and appreciate? Oh, I remember. Okay, sorry. I just remembered what the 5th question was supposed to be. I wanted to write it down before I forgot. Number 4, what do they most value and appreciate? So like when they receive a gift, what are the kinds of things that really speak to them, that like they really love? And is it something that's just like really unique and thoughtful that shows that you know who they are? Is it something that's really utilitarian, something that they can use every single day? Is it something that they can display in their house? Is it something for their kitchen? Is it something for, when they go out on hikes and things like that? What kinds of gifts do they most tend to appreciate and value? It could maybe even be like, maybe they aren't going to appreciate so much something that's already been created, but they would appreciate an experience. They'd like to go to the pottery studio with you and create the handmade things together. They'd like to go to the painting studio and do a sip and paint event. Then that it's still a handmade gift, but now they're the ones making it instead of somebody who's already made it for them. And then finally, question number 5, let's say that we're asking them, what's their love language? What really speaks to them? Is it acts of service? Is it gifts? Is it And maybe this is something that you put at the top of the blog post instead. But anyway, this is all for the sake of examples so that I can now tell you how to break this up. So we have these 5 pieces of the blog post where we're like, okay, consider all of these different things. Now what we can do, we have 5 different elements that you have dug deep into. You have explained it more to them. You could take all 5 of these if you wanted to and turn each of these questions into an Instagram carousel where you then give them a couple of tips for that question. So you're like, one Instagram carousel is all about diving into what your bestie loves. One Instagram carousel is all about diving into your bestie's love language, etc. Now, obviously, this is a ton of content. You could absolutely break this down into one blog post all about understanding your bestie's love language and then figuring out a gift from there as well. But for the sake of not making this podcast episode more complicated than it needs to be, we take each of those questions and turn that into a carousel, right? So now you could have 5 carousels just from that. Then you could pull some quotes. Like, say you have a quote in here that's like, a gift isn't about how much you spend on it. A gift is about the intentionality that you put into curating it. Or the gift isn't just about the gift is about how you give it to them. And so then it's also about like wrapping the gift or, creating a scavenger hunt for them or things like that. So you can pull multiple quotes out from your main piece of content. You can also, you just want to focus in on one of these questions and then create multiple posts about that. And then you can also create inspirational, like, hey, here are some gift ideas for somebody who has this love language. Here's some gift ideas for somebody who loves vintage handmade gifts. Here's how you can create something that is that vintage handmade gift without it being vintage. It's something that you create yourself. Whatever fits your ideal customer and your business. But I hope you can see here how like suddenly we have one main piece of content. We could like seriously create like 30 pieces of Instagram posts, 30 Instagram posts from this one piece really easily. Granted, this is a very broad post. And so often when we see that, we can actually take like this post, we could take it and divide it into 5 different blog posts, and then you still use the same strategy and you have, say, 5 Instagram posts for it instead of 30 Instagram posts. And now, like, say you've created this massive blog post originally, now you have 5 weeks of content instead of just 1. Anyway, I digress. That's so many people, we tend to, like, when we start to share, we want to share everything. And so then we end up with this massive blog post. We end up with this massive podcast. That might be me. Where it actually could be split up into something smaller. Like this podcast, I could have done what is repurposing content and why is it important? And then I could have done another one that is examples, and another one that is how I actually repurpose my content or what my repurposing schedule is or things like that. Okay. So that now we have a whole bunch of Instagram posts there. You could use the exact same ideas for Reels. You could, have just one post. You could have a carousel. They could be stories. It doesn't matter. The concept is still the same. Okay. And then for the email list, you can pull out like one paragraph that you think is really impactful from the blog and include an excerpt and say, read more here. You could say, hey, I just created this new blog post. This is what about. Go check it out. You could tell a little story about why you created the blog post. You could share a little story about how they can use the blog post. It can be as long or short as you want it to be. It doesn't have to be like this big, huge, massive email to say, then tell them like, hey, go now read this other piece of content, right? Yeah, it's just, you don't have to overwhelm them with content. And then our last piece of content, our last platform then would be Pinterest. So you can have templates that you've already put together, and then let's say you create 5 pins for this blog post. It could be, one title could be how to find the perfect handmade gift for your bestie, and another pin title could be gift shopping, handmade gift shopping for your bestie. And then you just change the colors between your pins, and like you just change the graphic. All Pinterest needs you to do is to make each piece of content look different. So you can change the colors, you can change the title, and you can just think of different ways to tell your audience that this is a thing, or to tell the Pinterest audience that this is a thing. You could say 5 questions to ask when gift giving, or the best handmade gift giving guide, or gift giving for your bestie, that kind of thing. So you can also use the exact same content that you created for Instagram, and you can post those in Pinterest as well as like the carousel. They don't call them carousels in Pinterest, but idea pins, I think is what they call them, where you have the multiple images they can swipe through, and you could, upload the exact same reels and things like that to Pinterest that you have on Instagram as well. So that was example 1. Example 2, I'll show you as well. But just to kind of conclude that, I hope that helps you see how you can take one piece of content, that main blog post, split it into a bunch of different Instagram posts, and easily then share it on Pinterest and share it with your email list. Okay, so another example. Let's say your blog post is how to style your art. This could be pottery, this could be painting, this could be anything visual is what I'm thinking of, like anything. Essentially, that could be a gift as well. Anything that could be used for decor. I have another rendition of this that I'll share as an example for like my clothing people, my knitting and crochet pattern designers, and that would go for also sewing patterns and things like that. But so the blog post is about how to style your art. Let's say first thing you say, okay, think about the colors. Think about the colors in the piece of art and the colors that you want to pull from there. You can give them tips on how to choose which colors to pull from there and which colors to leave exclusively in the painting. You could talk about the different vibes, like if they pull saturated colors versus if they pull neutral colors, and how that impacts the space. Number 2, say, how do you frame this art? Like, consider, like, do you want to put a frame around it? Do you want to create a visual frame, even if it's not actual painting or a piece of art that goes on the wall that you would typically put a frame around it? Maybe it is like a vase or something, but do they want to visually frame it, and the pros and the cons maybe of that? And then we could talk about ratios and talk about, like, okay, how do we make the piece of art either complement the rest of the room or be the main character, and talk about the ratios of, okay, if your wall is this big, your piece of art should be this big if it's the main character. Or if you have a main character piece of art already in the room, your artwork should be, this sort of ratio to complement it. And maybe you have, like, you're a potter, and so you have vases that are 10 feet tall, 2 feet tall, 5 inches tall, and you're like, okay, these are the different ratios for where you could use it. Like, you would put it on the dining table for this ratio, for this height. You would put it in the corner of the room for this height. But if your ceiling is this tall, it needs to be at least this height. That kind of thing is what I mean by ratios. And then vibe. Maybe, and for the framing as well, like, consider whether they are trying to decorate around this piece of art or whether they're trying to figure out how to incorporate the art into their existing space, because those are 2 different things. So the vibe, are they trying to find a piece of art that fits the existing vibe. So you can say, okay, so like these are like different vibes to consider, and this is how to find something that's a similar vibe. Or if they're like starting from scratch and you're like, okay, if this is the vibe that you want to create, this is how you create it, kind of thing. And then again, like this is a super broad topic. So you could, for these, you could just give them like a quick overview of each of these and say, hey, here's a blog post that goes into more depth, or here's a freebie that explains more depth what this is about. You can check this out for each of these different elements as well. Okay, and then number 5, here you could say, okay, consider the other art and furniture that you have in your room. Like, what kind of energy is it giving off? What's the vibe? What's the colors? Like, what is the style? What's the just all the different elements of this other furniture. How are you going to fit it in? How do you now style your art with this other furniture? And you could maybe give them some examples of how to fit it in. Then, okay, the alternate to this for my creative entrepreneurs who are not selling the actual, like selling things to display, but are styling their artwork in a wardrobe, you could still talk about colors. You could talk, like how do you choose the right colors to wear with this thing, or how to find complementary colors. You can talk about textures, which also might apply to the artwork, like the paintings and the pottery and stuff like that. You could talk about, like how to, like if you have a cabled sweater, how do you choose the other textures to go with them? With that, you can talk about accent pieces. So do you add a watch to it? Do you add some bracelets? Do you add some earrings, some jewelry? What style of these accent pieces is going to fit this item? Or if you're talking generally, like speak in general terms rather than to the specific item. But then you can also still talk about vibe and style, and then you might talk about the grounding pieces. So like this handmade item is like the statement piece, and then tell them how they can ground it with the rest of their outfit. So maybe this is a statement piece that is a shawl, and the grounding elements are a dress that they put with it, or the pants and the shirt they wear with it, or maybe just it's the pants to go with the sweater, or things like that. How do they ground this outfit so that it feels stable and not chaotic? Anyway, so those are like 2 different examples of essentially the same blog post idea. Now what we can do, we take this blog post, we can then have an Instagram post about each of these different topics. We can talk about the color, we can talk about the texture, we can talk about the framing. We could, and so you have a carousel that like dives into a few of these pieces from each of the categories. And then you can, again, pull quotes. You could show them visual examples. Like, here is a complementary set of colors. Here are some colors that, if this is what's in your sweater, in your art, here's some other colors to style well with it. You can show them what framing looks like. Like if you're framing the piece, not literally with like a wooden or metal frame, but you are framing it aesthetically, you can show them examples, pictures of how to frame their piece. And then you can show different accent pieces and show them how it changes the vibe. So accent pieces as in like other art for the visual artist, or accent pieces in terms of like jewelry and things like that for the wardrobe. And you can show them like how some of these things make it clash, or some things clash with it, how some things really elevate it, how some things make it more casual, and how they can use these accent pieces then to create the vibe that they're looking for. So you can absolutely add new elements into your Instagram posts that aren't specifically in the blog post, but you still keep it the same content, same topic, right? If you're pulling quotes, if you are creating like some sort of motivational quote that you didn't include in the blog post, but it still is tying back to this topic. And then same thing with the email, you're like, hey, I know you're really struggling to figure out how to style this, or do you ever pick up your hand knit sweater and you really want to wear it, but you're just not sure what to wear it with, or you want to make it into this outfit that looks like this certain vibe. Here, I can help you. Check out this blog post. Or you can be like, hey, I created this. Go check it out. It can be as simple as that. Whatever your vibe is, whatever is going to resonate with your audience, whatever is going to help you actually get the content out. And then for Pinterest, you could have a pin that is how to style your art. Another pin that says five secrets to styling your art. Another that is choosing the right colors and vibe for your art. Another that is picking complementary textures and accent pieces for your handmade garments, things like that. So those are some examples. I see Minnie is waking up. So I hope this was super helpful. I hope that if you have ever been like, okay, I like this idea of repurposing, or what in the world even is repurposing, that this gave you some actionable ideas, that it really showed you examples of how to take a core piece of content, split it up to make your life simpler, to make your content creation strategy easier so that you're not having to put so much energy into your marketing. Let me know if you have any questions. As always, feel free to send me a message in the fan mail or just send me an email. And I will have those links again in the caption, the Opus Clip Pro and the Aligned Habits Challenge. And I might also pop in one of my new lead magnets that you're welcome to check out as well, because if you're not on my email list, that's the best place to be right now, because I'm not podcasting. So I hope to see you over there. Alrighty, I wish you so much vibrancy in your art, in your business, and in your personal life, and I'll catch you on the next one. And that's a wrap for this episode. If you found it valuable, please share the podcast with a fellow entrepreneur. And if you have a minute, leave a review. Both help the Vibrant Artist podcast reach more of the people who will benefit from it, so we can continue to build a vibrant, beautiful world together. Chat soon.